Broadband deployment news. There was some bipartisan legislation introduced back in May called the ReConnecting Rural America Act, and there are some rural organizations that have jumped on board that are now supporting that. Be right back with the details. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Zcorum with Broadband Deployment News. Saw this story about some legislation that was introduced back in May. It says here, NTCA Rural Partners Coalition urges Congress to get behind the ReConnecting Rural America Act. So this story is actually from just a couple of days ago. So you see here reconnecting, spelled that way. So this is kind of leveraging on the USDA ReConnect program. Let's see, I thought I had some things marked in here, maybe not. So you see here, NTCA joined a coalition of 24 rural organizations to send a joint letter to leadership of the House and Senate Agriculture Committees, urging support for the ReConnecting Rural America Act amid ongoing consideration of the 2023 Farm Bill. So USD ReConnect, the way I understand it is I think that has to be kind of reinstantiated with the Farm Bill as that comes up. But I think the purpose of this is to make the ReConnect program permanent as part of the 1936 Agriculture Bill, I think it is. I'm going to look at the bill here in a minute and give you some highlights of it. So you can see some of the organizations that are supporting it. So you see a couple of major telecom organizations, especially on the rural side. So you got NTCA, that's the Rural Broadband Association. That's primarily used to be made up of rural telephone companies. There was a long time ago, there was an organization called Opastco that was absorbed into that. You've got and now today, obviously, they're dealing with just broadband operators in general that are rural, but then you've also got National Rural Electric Cooperative Associations. That's obviously self-explanatory, association of EMCs and whatnot. You've got on here Fiber Broadband Association, and then you've got Utilities Technology Council. That would be, generally larger publicly owned, I think, utilities. And some don't have to be larger, but a lot of times they are the publicly owned ones. You've got some other, as you get down here, you see Land O'Lakes. You've got National Peanut Federation, Fertilizer Institute, National Corn Growers Association, American Soybean Association. So these are all rural kind of farm associations, because a lot of times with USDA, it's the Department of Agriculture, and these are, a lot of times it's specifically aimed at rural areas, and a lot of times it's hitting farm areas. So these are all areas that would be supporting the ReConnect program in general, and then they're looking at this as being maybe a way to make that permanent and to make some changes that are needed, or that need to be maybe more specified. So again, I've linked in the description of this video a link to this BTR. This is in Broadband Technology Report, this particular article. And I also linked to the bill, which actually there's a letter that this particular article links to this letter. So this is the letter, and again, you see all the associations here. Again, it's sent to the chairpersons and to the ranking members of the House and Senate committees, agriculture committees. And then, it's got some information here. And then again, down at the bottom, basically signed by all of these associations. So they are trying to put their weight behind this to get some action on this. So what is this? I linked to the bill here. So you can see that here. And again, you've got your sponsors, Senator Welch from Vermont, and then Senator Marshall from Kansas. And then you got the text here that you can look at. That's not the text, sorry. That's the titles. Here we go. Everything's small on my screen. You got the text here you can look at. You can download that. So that's going to be in the form of a PDF that you can see here. Again, that's the name of what this is. So I'm not going to go through all of this. I already looked at it, but what I was going to do is kind of give you the highlights of what all of this is. So let's do that real quick. Go to, what am I trying to do here? I want to present this. There we go. What is this bill saying? So again, what they're saying is this is to make the USDA ReConnect program permanent. And I think that would be because, again, it's taking it out of, and let's take a look at the, let me go back again for a second. So what it is meant to do, purpose of this section is to, that's not it. bill to amend the Rural Electrification Act of 1996 to establish the ReConnect program under that act and for other purposes. So I think this would, it's so funny that we're amending an act from 1936 to add all of this broadband stuff into it. But I think that the purpose of doing that, to use this existing act, is to then take this ReConnect program, put it under that. I think, again, today, I think it's something that comes up with the Farm Bill that has to constantly be looked at. Now, I think it's still under this, would still have to be, funds still have to be appropriated on a regular basis, as we'll see. But this will take it and put it under this act, and I think then not under the Farm Bill is my understanding of the way that works. So again, let's take a look here. So again, makes USDA ReConnect program permanent. From that perspective, it's under that act and does not need to be part of a Farm Bill that comes up every several years. Establishes a 100 meg symmetrical requirement. Defines what the unserved thresholds would be. So the areas would have to be at least 75% of households at less than 100 by 20. It would prioritize areas that are with at least 90% that are less than 100 by 20. So those that are really unserved would be priority over that. And then also provides some leeway, kind of like in the BEAD program, areas with less than 10,000 residents or that are isolated from significant population centers may be prioritized. So again, this is trying not to leave out, let's say you've got a farm off somewhere that's not part of a large population center that you can kind of aggregate. I think that provides some leeway on being able to provide service there too. But use my arrows and not my scroller here. Loans, grants are a combination as the types of awards, and that goes along with what ReConnect is today. So ReConnect today basically is you get a 100% loan, you can get a 100% grant, or you can get a combination. And I think it's this way in the current one where a loan grant combo, no more than 50% grant. I think that's the way it is today, but it would be in this if it's not. 100% grants are available to tribal organizations. Colonias, which I had to look that up. So those would be kind of low income, poor areas near the U.S.-Mexican border. Persistent poverty counties and socially vulnerable communities as determined by the Secretary, and areas where 90% again are less than 100 by 20 megabits per second. Eligible entities, so pretty much everybody, kind of like some of the programs that are out. I think maybe the Middle Mile program was like this. So state and local governments, territories and possessions, Indian tribes, a cooperative or mutual organization. Mutual organization would be, it's kind of like a cooperative, except the members or the customers are not really so much members and contributing to the capital of it, but it's still a mutual organization. Communications union districts, those would be municipalities that are connected, that agree to work together for, like telecommunications purposes. And you've got corporations and LLCs, so that would pretty much cover ISPs right there. So anybody that could be a broadband provider. Limitations on those eligible entities, those providing telecom or broadband service at least 20% of the households in the U.S. would be limited to 15% of the funds for a fiscal year. So if you're a large operator like a Comcast or an AT&T, you could not come in and dominate all of the funds in a fiscal year. The most you could get would be 15%. States themselves also could not dominate this. So states are limited to 15% of the funds for a fiscal year. And funds can't be used where there are other, I guess didn't type that right, where there are other federally funded areas unless, and apparently I did not finish my thought. So if I remember, let's see, federal funds can't be used unless, unless again, there was a certain percentage of the customers in that area that were not covered by those prior federal funds. So you can look that up. Sorry about that. Did not finish that slide. Eligible uses and additional requirements. So construction and improvement and acquisition of equipment and facilities to provide broadband service in rural areas. Pre-application expenses. And there's only, I think that would be for the internet service provider. I think there's a 5% limitation on administrative costs on this for the agency. So the agency itself, USDA, could not have more than 5% administration costs for themselves, but you've got pre-application expenses here can be covered for the eligible entities as one of the eligible uses. Additional requirements, the build-out must be completed in 5 years, and they must offer the Affordable Connectivity Program, Lifeline Program, and any successor program. So as we know, the Affordable Connectivity Program is on limited time right now. Maybe this time next year, about at this time next year is when it's going to be out of funds. If it grows fast, if it grows much faster and bigger than it is now, it's going to be out of funds sooner than that. So that is something that would need to be, they need to provide additional funds for the ACP or any successor program if they come out with something else. If you were to take funds from this, you'd have to support that or enroll in that, allow for subscribers to use that. Funding, $650 million each fiscal year from 2024 to 2028. Available until expended. This is a little confusing for me, as we'll see here in a minute. Why? Direct loans, $350 million each fiscal year from 2024 to 2028 until expended, I should say, available until expended. And no grants or loans may be made after September 30th, 2028. So to me, that was a little confusing because it says available until expended. So, but you can't make any loans or grants after September 30, 2028. To me, it sounds like they have to get all of these funds out by that time, so they can't extend past 2028, and it's a certain amount of money per fiscal year available until expended. So I don't think that means, I'm not sure. So let's say you have $650 million in 2024 and you don't use it all. Can you use some of that in 2025? Maybe that's what it's saying. So maybe if all of those funds are not completely used in 2025, that will roll over into the next year, and then any other funds will roll into the next year, but no loans or grants can be made after September 30th, 2028. So maybe that's what that's saying. It was a little contradictory. I didn't quite understand that. So I think that's it. Yeah. So anyway, so those are the details on that. And, this is something that, again, I think will maybe make it more permanent. It still sounds like maybe every several years they're going to have to come and, again, legislation to grant more money, but it'll be under this other act from 1936 and not part of a farm bill and wrapped up all in that. So maybe there's a reason that will be better. I'll leave that up to the people in Washington, D.C. and all these associations to figure that out. But so that's something that could be interesting. And now with all of these associations behind it, maybe this will get some momentum and something will happen. Thus far, it's just been basically in committee. I don't even know if it's been talked about. It was introduced back in May. It was introduced both on the House and the Senate side. So they're, again, bipartisan. There's a senator and two senators, a Republican and Democrat, and two congresspeople, Republican and Democrat, that introduced them in both the Senate and the House. So this would, I guess, give it some momentum, hopefully, to be looked at if it's something that is important. So this is interesting because, again, with BEAD funding coming out and trying to get broadband to everybody, what will be the need for this after 2028? Will there be a need for this after 2028? We'll always have a need to get broadband to places, but let's say we get everybody covered by that point that we can. Everybody's covered by broadband by 2028. Then you've got new construction that will be coming out, but new construction is tending to make things not more rural, but less rural. So you'll have new construction going into certain areas. I suppose there could be new construction in very rural areas that don't have anybody there now that are still going to be rural. So it could be used for that. And this could be used for helping to, let's say we've got the USF. We need those funds today to try to help rural service providers manage and maintain their networks. Once they're built, that's fine, and you can have funds to do that. But they're more expensive to maintain because you've got miles and miles and miles of facility that you have to maintain that you don't have, let's say, in an urban environment where you've got everybody's kind of compact. And when you're doing truck rolls, you've got lots of homes close to each other. It might be a big service area, but you've got lots of customers packed in. Here you've got lots of customers that may be spread way out. So it's much more expensive to maintain these networks. So USF, the Universal Service Funds, has gone traditionally to help phone companies, but now broadband operators get assistance with these really high-cost areas. So this could be used for that. And then maybe USF could be used towards possibly funding something like the ACP or a successor program like that. So that's how I could see it being used because, there's still some USDA ReConnect money, I think, available through the IIJA when that passed because there was some USDA money included in that. Then we've got all of the BEAD funds. So there's going to be, we'll see. There's going to be pockets of areas that may still need broadband. But I mean, at some point, everybody's going to have good broadband. And there's a 100 by 100 requirement, and you might go, well, that's not very fast. It's going to get faster. It needs to be faster. Well, it can get faster. If you're doing 100 by 100, then almost certainly they're going to be doing fiber in all of these areas. There are some places where it says if it's not possible, I think there might be other options, but it's going to be fiber, and the 100 by 100 is just kind of a minimum standard. But once you've got fiber, and 100 by 100 is easy, and a gig by a gig is easy, so to speak. It's just a matter of changing out some. Really, I don't know if 100 by 100 probably is going to be using 1 gig cards anyway. It's going to be GPON, so it's going to be able to do a gig anyway. The question is the backhaul or your backbone connection. So don't worry about the 100 by 100. That's this. They're talking about fiber here. Again, the most future-proof technology we have now that will be able to expand to much faster speeds. So that part is covered. So again, with BEAD and a lot of that focusing on fiber, we're going to have good broadband throughout most of the country as those BEAD funds roll out. And this will help supplement that. But whether this needs to go past 2028 is a question I have, other than, again, maybe supplementing for these really high-cost areas where it's very expensive to manage the networks, and for maybe new deployments that are going to be expensive both to build and manage. So we'll have to see where this goes, but I thought that was interesting. So thanks for joining me. If you thought it was interesting as well, if you give me a like on the video, I'd appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to our channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button, click the little bell to be notified when I'm live. Thanks again for joining me. See you next time. Bye-bye.